Hello. Welcome everyone to another ThursdAI. Today is coming to you live from New Orleans in this hotel that I'm sitting in. So today is not the usual. Oh, my voice is dying because we've been talking for so long. I'll explain why. But today is not our usual ThursdAI. I'm in New Orleans and I'm in this crazy conference called NeurIPS. And I am sitting in a hotel with like spotty reception as well. So hopefully everything will work out fine. But if not, you'll have to forgive me. And then I hope to post like a quality recording of this on the actual podcast. So welcome everyone. So thank you for joining. For those of you who are new here for the first time, ThursdAI is a Twitter space and then it turns into a podcast. We've been doing this every week since GPT-4 released, March 14th, Pi Day, in this year. And we've been through so many updates since then. It's kind of been crazy. It's been crazy to be able to keep up with all of this. And I keep using this word crazy. And it's just getting crazier. It literally just gets more insane. This week was full of releases. Really, my notes are huge, and I'm going to try to make justice and to cover as much as possible. But this week was already full on Friday. This Friday for open source was like not one other single day for open source that I remember. And so we're going to cover several things that caused that Friday to be full. I actually said at the end of Friday, as I was thinking about boarding a flight to New Orleans, that if this is what Friday is, I can't imagine like how the rest of the week is gonna be, because I already had enough stuff on Friday to talk about for a full ThursdAI, to dive in to dive in deep, and then the rest of the week also happened, which was great. And I've met a bunch of folks that I can't wait to tell you about here. Maybe let me run through quickly of all of the things that I'm trying to go to cover, right? So this is going to be like your TLDR in the beginning of the podcast. And then you'll hear everything else as it starts. So Mixtral, our dear friends, our dear paragons of open source, did the thing again. They did the thing. They did the magnet thing. They again dropped the magnet link on their Twitter account. And then we're going to talk about Mixtral MOE. If you don't know what this is, tune in and stay with us, and we're going to talk about what MOE means and what Mixtral is. We're going to cover the Mixtral 0.2 Instruct. So not only did they release a new model, they also released their older model with Instruct fine-tune that significantly improves reasoning. It's English only, but it's the same Mixtral we all knew to love and we cover every week. It's now a new base version, and I think Instruct version has released. It's very interesting to see how folks in the open source community are going to treat that. Together, release StripedHyena and Hyena architecture, and StripedHyena and StripedHyena Naus or News, which is together with our friends in News Research. That when I met with folks with News Research, they did not tell me about, which was good on them to not spill the secrets. But it's pretty cool to see a completely new architecture that we probably should cover as well. And then we're going to talk about Eagle, which is a new decoding method. We're going to cover DESI AI, a new state-of-the-art 7B model, even though it was state-of-the-art when they released it, but it's 2 days ago. So I fully expect that not to be state-of-the-art at this point. But it's an interesting model that we should at least cover. And then Microsoft finally gave us Phi PHI 2.0, and we've talked about Phi multiple times. It's a tiny model. I think it's a 2 billion parameter model, and it was straight on the tiny stories dataset, among others. And it's very, very performant. And we finally got a non-commercial license. We're going to cover Phi, and we've been waiting for them to drop the weights for that as well. I also like ran through something called Quip, which is a new quantization SoTA that like compresses better than other stuff that we know, like GGUF. So I haven't dove into Quip, but if we have folks here who did, we're going to talk about Quip. And there's something with Mamba as well. We've talked about Mamba last week. I believe it's also a different architecture. And then the 2 billion parameter model trained on the Slim Pajama dataset, was also released first. We also have a bunch to cover in the big company large language model and APIs, namely GeminiPro released their API access. So we're going to talk about this. And Umesh here, who's joined as a co-host, I'm going to say hi to you in a second. So I already saw that you started playing with this a little bit. Um, it's very interesting how they're pricing it. So we're going to discuss this. In addition to that, Mistral, the company, not the model, uh, which they don't have a differentiation between the company and the model. They probably should. They released their API inference server, which is super cool from them. It's called La Plateforme or something French like that. So shout out to them trying to get some more RLHF in the door and how people use this. Together Compute, which we know and love because they sponsor a bunch of folks. They come to ThursdAI, they sponsor their Compute. I think they sponsored news research for um, a bunch of their projects. They have came out with the same pretty much API, undercutting Mistral by 70%. So we're going to cover that as well. And yeah, just a tiny thing in the AI Art and Diffusion Stability released a 3D model. And I had a chance to catch up with Imad from Stability. So I invited him to ThursdAI. He's busy. But still, he's invited. Imad, if you hear this, you're more than welcome. But we had a chance to geek out for a little bit. And then it feels like we're going to have to talk about like one stability drop every week, at least for the next few weeks, because they have a bunch in store and they have a few. All these companies are planning like holiday releases to like because they know that students are going on their break, and then they know that like it's funny to release on Christmas and just like mess people's holidays up. So we're gonna see that as well. And Google just like casually dropped Imagen too. Imagen is their AI art diffusion model, and it's pretty good as well. So Google dropped Imagen as well, and so we're gonna mention that. And I really, really want to talk about Optimus. I know that we usually talk about LLMs and AI art and like all these things, but like Tesla is doing incredibly advanced stuff with the robotics arm, and literally, I don't know if you guys had the chance to see that video. The Optimus hands movements are just sci-fi, and it looks so good. It's really unbelievable that it's not sped up. And you know, with the rate things are going, many of us may have one of these things walking around our house doing our laundry soon. Hopefully not killing all of us, but definitely would love to cover Optimus as well because just that video, man. Just like if I'm going to be the first person who showed you that video, I'm going to be happy. I did my job today on Thursday. And I think that's most of what we have to cover, but I'm sure that I missed like a bunch of other stuff. Um, yeah, our friend Alignment Lab was here earlier, and I don't know if they're still in the audience, but Alignment Lab is more than welcome to join and to talk about some interesting Mixtral fine tunes that they're working on. And our folks from News Research are busy at NeurIPS. I met Technium last night in one party, and then he hopped in another party. So I don't know when he went to sleep, but he definitely hung out with the Mistral folks in face to face. And so all of these news, once we finish talking to them, I will give you like an honest recap of NeurIPS and my time here since I came here. And for the first time, I came to NeurIPS, but also I joined in a professional capacity. I was standing in the booth and talking to all these people who come to Weights and Biases booth and talk to us how they love Weights and Biases. And many of the people who build the things that I just talked about, I had the chance to understand that many of them use Weights and Biases, which is pretty cool as well. So with that, this is our TLDR. If any of this interests you, please feel free to stick around. And then all of it will be then rejoined. Kind of, we're gonna obviously publish this on the podcast as well. So if you can't stay for 2 hours on a Thursday, you definitely don't have to do all of it. You're more than welcome to then chime in on the podcast. I'm going to send a recap of this. I don't know if I'll have the honestly the power to like recap a newsletter as well, because just like NeurIPS is still happening, and I would really want to go and see Jan LeCun and Max Tegmark and Nick Bostrom fight it out on stage in a debate about AGI. So I definitely would like to go and see that. All right. So with that, I wish I had musical transitions, but you guys, those of you who come here for a while, imagine the musical transition right now. And we're about to get started. And I will say hi to Umesh. Hey, Umesh, welcome as a first time as a co-host.
Oh, fantastic, Alex. Thank you. Really pleased to be here. And let's get cracking. We have so much to
So much to
cover,
cover.
so I don't want to hog any kind of time. Yeah, let's start. Let's kick
For
off.
those for those who
Take
for
off.
those who don't know who you are, would you mind to give like a brief introduction to yourself and what you do?
Yes, certainly. So my name is Umesh, but I'm famous on now Twitter slightly, little, as educated guess because my life is educated guess. But I've been right 50%, 51% of the time. So that's how I reached here.
Love it.
I've been in ML field for almost 12 years now, but largely working with LLMs and NLPs for last 5 years. And currently, I'm in a startup mode in the UK, based in London, and implementing all and every type of pipeline that you can imagine. So that's it.
Awesome, awesome. And you've been joining this ThursdAI multiple times in the past, and it's great to have you as a co-host at this point.
I had the wonderful pleasure of being with you on this journey. So really pleased with that. Yeah, let's get
All
cracking.
right, so I think I want to just try to see if Austin can come up. Austin Alignment Labs, the guys behind Open Chat. I think it says can now speak, but I don't see Austin. If you can speak, make a sound. It says there's an error adding Austin. Oh man, there's always an error. So we'll see. We'll
Yeah, Alex, I also got requests from him, and I was trying to add him. I sent him a request also. So I think you need to jump out and then jump in, and I'll send you a request. Alex, just go on. I'll manage.
Okay, thank you. Right, so folks, I think the most as we get started here, the most kind of major thing that happened this week by far, even with NeurIPS happening and 15,000 people joining New Orleans to talk about AI in their papers, that wasn't like the most important thing from AI this week. The most important thing was Mixtral MOE. And so when I say Mixtral, I literally say the word Mixtral because that's what they called it. But we eventually found out like how we called it. But yeah, there is a Mistral, the company that we've talked about multiple times, that we received the best fine-tuned versions of on the kind of continuous basis. The company released a mixture of experts model, and mixture of experts model is basically how should we say, mixture of experts is what GPT-4 is, or many people kind of consider the GPT-4 as a mixture of experts. It's a um it's a way to, you know what? I'm not gonna even attempt. It's a way to like combine in some certain way, because I saw people complain about people on Twitter saying, "Hey, it's not combining models." It's a way to combine models that are trained on specific things. One is trained for code, one is trained for reasoning for a specific topic, one is trained for, let's say, fine-tuned for something else. And then it's a way to run all these models in a way that when user interacts with them, the model at inference time, or I guess at training time, I actually don't fully know, maybe it's good to have alignment join us and explain. It learns from different models, different experts, and there's different experts on different areas. And basically, we know that Mistral 7B is the best kind of model, or 7B that we had, and they released 8 times that. So they released like 8 7B experts together in and a router model in between them, and it significantly outperforms, or comes very close to outperforming GPT 3.5. And so what this means is, and if you guys remember, 2 weeks ago we did a cover of 1 year after ChatGPT was released. Those of you who joined like 2 weeks ago, this literally means that we have the same model that changed the world a year ago, that changed all our lives in the mesh. I think you can go next, and like you specifically said, it changed yours as well. And we have that now in fully open source. And when I say fully open source, I do mean this, because the guys in Mistral, Arthur and his team, they released that model with Apache 2.0 license, which means you can use it. There's nothing preventing you from using it commercially. You can use it to create new models. And when I say fully open source, and their commitment to open source is so vast that a friend of the pod, Forel from Skunks Works, that comes up from time to time, he complained on Twitter that he saw some like very small mention of, you cannot use this to distill this model, like you cannot use Mixtral to do something else. And he mentioned this on Twitter, and Arthur from Arthur Mensch, the CEO, I guess, from Mistral, he replied within like a 2 hour and said, removed, go ahead. Like they literally went and removed that like little clause that any company probably has in their terms and conditions. And so we saw that and we were like very, very, very impressed, on top of the being very impressed with the quality of their models. And so I think, yeah, I think it's good enough for me to like cover. Let's go. Alignment Labs, if you want to chime in on Mixtral, and feel free to do so.
Well, no, I think you really, you nailed it. In this case, to me, like the most interesting thing about the model is that they created this like very performative model that is a base model by initializing it off of the weights of a different base model. And you could, in the Phi2 paper, Microsoft did like something very similar with Phi2. So clearly they noticed. It sounds like it's not that big of a deal, but to me, that's like a giant deal. Because it means we're getting to a place where we could actually just start recouping all this money that we've spent on all of these pre-trains and just start piling it all into like bigger and bigger models without having to continue to spend it.
Yeah, so I want to talk about this initialization thing, right? So we saw, and I think, I don't know if we got the confirmation, but we definitely saw some people do, a comparison analysis where all of the experts in Mixtral, all of the 8 experts, they were initialized with the already pre-trained 7B model that we all know and love, right? That's the one that's been performing well with OpenNeurIPS and OpenChat, and from folks who like Alignment Labs and OpenNeurIPS from News, and all these like different, very well performing open source models. Those were used to kind of initialize the MOE expert kind of model, which means that like Alignment, like you said, like they already kind of used the money they will spend in order to continue making their models better. And to some extent, we believe that maybe like OpenAI also did that with GPT-4. And we don't have official confirmation that GPT-4 is MOE. I think we don't have like an official confirmation, although I saw something. But we have from Latent Space Pod with George Hotz, dear friends of ours, Latent Space, which I sometimes get to like guest host in. Like last week, we talked with Wing Lian from Axolotl. George Hotz went to that podcast and he just like said, GPT-4 is a mixture of experts model, which turned into a frenzy of people like trying to understand what mixture of experts is back then. And now we're getting open source mixture of experts, which we also talked about. Go ahead, Umesh.
Yeah, so basically just to quickly give you an idea about the sparse architecture that it has, because we are currently in the process of implementing it through the API and everything. So just wanted to clarify that basically what happens, the way it works is it has a router network in it, and then it chooses 2 of the experts basically, and then processes the token that is being sent in, and then combines the output of the experts together. And that's how it makes the inference. So that's basically the sparse model, sparse architecture. That's the way it works.
Yeah, so sparse and dense are 2 concepts that are, I think, fairly new for folks in ThursdAI. So dense model is like the 7B model that we got before, right? That's a dense model. And sparse is what we're getting now with MOE. Is that correct?
It's not exactly like it's not exactly that definition. Basically, sparse is more like sparsity in terms of where you're getting the inferences from, and these are decoder only model. Remember, so you have basically let's say a kind of a, how do you pick the feed forward blocks, right? So you get, so all 8 models that you have is basically groups of parameters basically. And that's the sparsity that you get between 8 different models. So in itself, the models are dense basically. So it still remains the same dense models. But between the models, you have a sparsity where you're creating this dual token extraction using the router. And once you get it, you add the tokens and you generate the inference basically.
And so this essentially creates a way for, I don't know, a significantly better model in a smaller package, but there's also drawbacks to this, right? So as far as I know, and maybe Alima, you can speak to this a little bit, I saw multiple people talk about how this is great to have, but for local inference, for example, that's maybe not the best for the smaller, like people who want to run them on MacBooks.
I think
Yeah. So
it's. I was just going to say, Mistral didn't really release a lot of modeling code when it first came out, so it was really difficult to see how efficient it actually is. But it's really not so bad. I was running it on my laptop CPU at like a pretty high speed. There's a lot of like size to it, but it's not actually activating so much of its like sharing instance. The models aren't really engaging as much with the hardware as you would expect based on the size alone.
That's great to hear. Go ahead, Umesh.
And Alex, just to add to what Alignment Labs said, so basically, although it's 46.7 billion parameters model, if for the inference, it's only using around 13 billion parameters. So per token, basically. So that's the reason why you don't see the full activation when you're trying to do the inference. So that's something that we did kind of a benchmark using our own architecture. And then basically what we found is that when we use their API, the inference is better in terms of the TTFT and overall inference as well. So that is the reason we went for API. So initially we were thinking of loading it on our own infrastructure, but this is why probably Alignment Lab, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the reason probably you're seeing less activation, because for every token, it's only looking at those 13 billion parameters, and it's selecting the experts to create the token.
So it selects two experts, right? Like for each token, it like sees or like two experts and then selects between them, and not the full 8. Is that what I'm saying? Is that correct?
No, it's additive inference. So it's not selecting one of the two, it's additive. So basically it adds the token. So it's kind of, how do I explain to you, like kind of a parallel processing, let's put it that way. Mm-hmm. So that probably is the reason why this architecture could be the future architecture, because then you can access different parts of the model simultaneously, and you can have parallel processing of tokens as well. So that's the direction we might be heading into with this particular architecture.
That was good to hear. And so obviously the open source community is jumping on this. I already saw like multiple attempts from different folks to try and fine tune this. Alignment Labs is one of those folks, and Alignment, Austin, feel free to like I think at this point introduce yourself and what you guys do, and definitely tell us about what from the open source community side, what do you see? I know they didn't release much in terms of inference code, and then I know that Axolotl just recently added access to fine tuning this, so feel free to just like give us a brief overview of what you guys do, and then how does this new model can affect the stuff that you do.
Sure. So we really just try to build out the most efficient, useful tools that we can, and release them out to the open source so that people can build businesses and just kind of generally have access to things that we think it's a human rights issue, right? If we can't have AI, everyone else does. It's a problem that's all behind a paywall. Axolotl does have fine tuning for Mixtral now. He had it optimized his power. It was crazy, but I don't think his initial implementation was good, because he immediately messaged me telling me not to release the initial model that came out of it. I think, sorry, it's been such a crazy week, and there has been like truly so many things, and Mixtral's been like right in the center of a ton of it. We have 2 models that we're working on right now, 2 that we're going to release today, like as I finish typing out these tweets, if you guys want to see that like after the pod. Otherwise, I would say just keep watching for more efficiency gains, because it feels like everybody has more stuff that they're doing to the local model that is making it easier and faster to turn. I think Tim Detmers even mentioned somewhere that he thought he could get it down to like 4 gigs of VRAM to turn the whole thing.
Could you repeat that last part? I think you broke up a little bit.
Tim Detmers, I think he mentioned in the Disco.
Tim Detmers, the guy from QLore and the quantization folks.
Yep. Yeah, University of Washington. I did some bytes library. He has made local models. Really, like 90% of the reason you can even do it locally is like it just his continuous effort on that front. And he was on the front of figuring out Mixtral, just like the rest of us when it dropped. If we can get it down to 4 gigs of VRAM, I can turn it on my laptop. It's not a problem, even though it is a big model, but you can always offload.
I think I saw some stuff from Tim and Bits and Bytes where he talks about even like 1-bit quantization is possible because of some stuff with the mixture of vectors specifically. And you know, we know about like 4-bit quantization, etc. 1-bit sounds like incredible to the point where like some colleagues of mine on Slack said, "Hey, wake me up when like 0-bit is possible." But yeah, getting this model down to 4 gigabytes VRAM just sounds impossible but incredible. So shout out to Team Dietmers and continues continuous efforts on that front. Go ahead, Umesh.
Yeah, just one question for Rustin. I'm just thinking, like, when you fine tune the model, like how will it be affecting the different components or different experts? So that's something that is not quite clear yet as to how the layers will get kind of impacted when you fine tune the model. So do you have any idea on that or anything on that?
I would say it's worth noting that you could go onto their GitHub and find their fork of mega blocks. I know that 2 of my engineers were sweating and yelling at their computers for like 2 days to figure it out. And I didn't want to ask them. They seemed pretty upset. So it seems complicated to me. I haven't done the training yet myself, though.
Mega Blocks was the paper that talked about this, right? Like everybody I saw was sharing the paper. That was very interesting. I think we have Omar from Hugging Face as well. I think he shared a bunch of the MOE stuff. Umesh, if you don't mind, and Austin, I want to move on because we have like so much to cover. But definitely, Mixtral is the new game in town. I actually wanted to call it something else. Like I know it's not the thing that you want maybe came to hear about, but I wanted to call this Mistral of experts, but Mixtral kind of won, and everybody's calling this Mixtral. But the other thing that they have released for us on Monday, so just a few days after, and remember. Last week we talked with last week the ThursdAI came to you from the Lake and Space Pod in San Francisco, and I was there to talk with open source folks, and I actually saw us there and a bunch of like Technium and some other folks. We talked with folks from Mistral. We talked with Leila from Mistral, and we asked him like, "When's the model coming?" And he was grinning at us, and he was like, at some point. And then little did we know that this would come a day after. So it was kind of a crazy release schedule. Everybody's like grinning because they know a bunch of stuff and nobody wants to talk about this. Also, the news people with together. So we're gonna cover together and StripedHyena in a second. But Mistral also released to us an instruct model of the previous 7B model that's only English and is purportedly output performs on logic the previous models. I don't know if the folks on stage had a chance to like look at the Mistral instruct, but definitely, if you're using the base model for yourself and not kind of the fine tunes, try that one. And although it's only English for some reason, but it's probably fine tuned. I want to see if actually you had a chance to play with that, or you saw this news. Do you have any reaction? Actually, I think you're on stage.
Yeah. So hi everyone. My name is Akshay Kumar, and I work as a data scientist. My day job. And yeah, by the way, instruct model is really well fine-tuned. So most of the fine-tunes we have had before Mistral, that the community fine-tuned was good. But this model that they have released, although only in English, is really well fine-tuned. So performs almost equal to GPT-4 instruction following. And when I say that, remember that a model such as even BARD and similar struggle with instruction following. So really well fine-tuned. Also, the fact that it's completely uncensored. It's kind of cool that we have a GPT 3.5 model that is uncensored and extremely good at instruction following. So yeah, that is basically it.
One thing that I wanted to add, thank you, actually. One thing that I wanted to add as well is, I think as of 2 hours ago, and again, shout out to Hugging Face friends. I'm actually going to the Hugging Face party tonight. So if you have any questions, DM me. I will ask the folks there. But Mixtral, the MOE is now supported on transformers as well, and I think it's quantized to be very, very small due to continuous efforts of like Tim Dietmers and the bloke and some other folks, which is great to see in the open source community. And so that's always great. So Transformers libraries now supports that. but also the instruct version, it does feel a little bit different. I didn't have a chance to play with this because of like so much stuff. But if you have not played with the instruct model and you still like want to run the smallest model, Mistral 0.2 instruct is for you. I don't know why, honestly, they didn't release it in the same thing, but I trust that Mistral folks, they know how to do an impact, right? With the torrent drop and with the removal of the licensing problems from Pharrell's tweet, like all of these things. I trust that Mistral they know what they're doing, and many of them who we meet, they have a bunch of interest as well. I think it's time to kind of we're gonna have one more update about Mistral when we go to like the API section, because as you guys know, those of you who follow like ThursdAI, we talk about open source and then we talk about big companies and APIs. Mistral is now both, and we're gonna cover that as well, but in the next section. Right, so we're moving on to Together, and Together is also kind of like becoming a little bit of a name in a big company, because Together has a few things that they've announced actually, but we're going to talk about the Hyena architecture for just a little bit. It's I think also the same Friday with Mixtral. Together folks, who one of the folks there is ThursdAI, if I'm not mistaken. ThursdAI is the guy behind not PyTorch Lightning.
Flash attention.
Thank you. Flash attention too. Thank you, Austin. So one of those guys, we actually talked about different architecture from them. And there's this new class of things. They're called state space models. That correct me if I'm wrong. Again, not a data scientist. And so they released an architecture, and they talked about an architecture called Hyena, which effectively tries to combine transformers with something called state. And I will let some folks on stage, maybe Umesh, if you want to take this one to kind of explain how that potentially improves performance. I will say that it's about time, and we've talked about this a little bit. It's about time that we see something like this, because we know that the transformers have something called quadratic attention, and that prevents or slows down the model significantly at lower sequences. And so some of the benefits that we saw from Together with the StripedHyena architecture, I think Mamba we've talked about with Luigi from News as well, is that even like it could outperform transformers even on the how should I say, even on the inference kind of time for regular token sequences, so like regular length. Imagine like you're sending, I don't know, 500 words or like 1,000 words. On the longer sequences, on the 20,000 tokens, like etc., it significantly outperforms transformers, significantly, like by 20 to 100x, which is a huge factor, because we know the transformers like slow down the longer sequences are. And so Together also released two models for us: a StripedHyena, I think it was a rank model. No, StripedHyena News, together with News Research, and another StripedHyena, which I escaped the name of. I should have more notes. So they also like trained those models with the StripedHyena architecture. Now, I think it's fairly new still, and it's very interesting. From Together, the same guy treated out the Flash Attention, the Flash Attention 2. Basically, that software like helps everyone in the ecosystem, right? Austin, I think we talked about this. Like, it makes everything that you guys do significantly faster.
It's hard to like overstate how much of an impact ThursdAI has personally had.
There's a few folks like this, right? So definitely when somebody speaks about a new architecture and people can be like skeptical whether or not that actually materializes into some significant things, ThursdAI has the creds, right? Like Mistral, when they only raised a bunch of money and everybody's like, oh, you know, this is hype or bubble, whatever. Who find like three dudes in the French trench coat getting $130 million, and then when they released Mistral 7B, they got some creds. And then now there is Mixtral, and we continuously see like improvements from them and incredible performance. So they're getting the credits as well. ThursdAI is getting like those credits because of Flash Attention. He works it together doing like incredible things. And so if somebody announces new architecture, you know, we try to be skeptical with the moderate, like optimistic approach, because we do want different architectures that improve. And 3DAO is one such dude. The interesting thing is he works it together, but he also released, I want to say Mamba, if I'm not mistaken. And that's also a space state model or architecture. And that also kind of talks about improvement to lower complexes. So they basically, from 3DAO and together, we saw two new architectures of this new type compared to transformers. And so that's kind of weird. Why are they releasing like separately? Like what's going on? So I didn't really like get that. However, based on everything I saw, this looks incredible, and we're very happy that like quadratic attention thing is potentially going away. Go ahead, Austin.
Yeah, no, it's definitely going away. Yeah, so 3DAO has spent, as far as I've been aware of AI, he's basically single-handedly like drug us from the age of like 512 sequencing. He's continuously been putting out things that are phenomenal for inference costs and inference speed and efficiency, just continuously. And, Noose has made major jumps there. So the two of them together is like certainly a thing to watch. I feel like more and more crazy stuff is just going to drop out of that.
So StripedHyena is the thing. They also released the models. So they announced an architecture and also like fine-tune some models. They also, the same thing happened with Mamba. I think there's like a Mamba 2B, like a small model as well. There was trained on Slim Pajama dataset. So we're also getting like some Mamba architecture models as well this week. But I'm really like excited about this StripedHyena stuff. Together, it was also in the news for some other things that we're going to cover next. So I'm just going to go and see if Umesh or actually you want to like comment on the Hyena architecture and the StripedHyena models, and then we can move on to next stuff.
No, let's move on, because if there is something else, if we have time, then we'll go slightly into detail about the model. But right now, let's just march.
I think we're okay. Like, I think I can like, yeah, okay, let's move on. But generally, you're right. There's like so much in open source that has been released that like we should just continue. But we should note though, the interesting thing about like this quadratic attention stuff is that the models are getting slower the more tokens they need to kind of process and output, and we're potentially having a solution for that in the same day that we have an incredible like advancement in the open source mixture of X source model. And so I just want to highlight that day, because in addition to all that, we also got something called Eagle. Hopefully, guys, you saw that. I'll try to find the tweet for Eagle. There's a new decoding method, and I think we've covered a few decoding methods. It's how should I simplify decoding method? It's based on the comparisons that folks post, at least on Twitter. Decoding is like how fast the tokens are appearing after the model kind of ran through them. And I think we saw something called lightning fast or something like that. And so Eagle is this new decoding method that showed up on the same. Oh my God, I just got a notification for OpenAI. No, it's fine. It's just grants. No news for OpenAI. Go ahead, Umesh.
Yeah, so the tweet is from Hongyang Zhang, and basically it kind of provides you almost 3x speed in decoding in terms of compression and everything. So yeah, just a quick addition.
So one thing, could you please pin that if you're looking at that tweet? I don't know if you're like looking up on your phone. I just can't find this tweet.
Yeah, well, I'm going to bring it up on the Jumbotron or Ping Pill.
Yeah. Thank you. And so the thing that I like mostly struck by is that we've got like a huge open source model that like significantly outperforms GPT 3.5. We've got some other things in store to talk about, like in the next section as well, via the API section as well. We've got a potentially like different architecture that significantly improves on longer sequences and removes constraints that we're currently like feeling, or at least from the open source. And then we also got like a faster decoding method as well, which makes. Let me try to simplify this in this way for some folks who are not following ThursdAI or like not as interested like me, or like us. When the speed you experience with token output, that's a lot of the times like how much your hardware is good and how much like it can process those like thinking machines, right? Decoding is an additional thing on top of that kind of reasoning that can speed up what you perceive as a user in terms of like how many fast tokens you see. And so there's like different methods. There's the vanilla, just like feeding a token after a token out, and the user just sees kind of completion. But there's like different optimizations, and they keep also improving. And so Eagle just like 3x improved on the same hardware for the same model. Potentially, I don't know about like a pre-training. They talked about like some additional like training for Eagle, so I'm not fully know the details. But based on just the comparisons, and once Umesh adds the tweet, you'd be able to see, based on just the vanilla kind of output, you will see like 3x the speed basically, right? So imagine like it's perceived, it's maybe, but like no hardware update is involved, no model like sizes is involved. So basically this essentially means that if this trend continues to happen, and we've seen this happen like from week to week, I think we talked about the faster decoding almost a week ago, then the users perceive your model 3x times faster, even though it's like slow and runs the same hardware, right? So like like we're getting better models, they're smaller. The team Detmer is talking about quantizing them to 1 bit or some crazy thing like this in 4 gigabyte. And then also on top of that, the same day they announced like a faster way to have the model show you text the same day. So I find that like that day was like unique in open source as far as I remember. And thank you, Mesh, adding the tweet. So the Eagle, new method for fast LLM decoding, 3x than vanilla, which is kind of insane. And so I know if you guys use the Llama CPP, our friend and hero of the community, Georgi Gerganov, he always like Llama CPP adds many of these methods, so we may see some of these like appear in different architectures as well. And so we're moving from Eagle, and another thing I saw is Quip, and Quip they claim to have a state-of-the-art quantization and compression for models. And we've seen huge advancement in quantization, right? So from our friend, like I think Georgi Gilgano is like one of the folks who started like supporting quantization. And then we have the bloke, the guy who takes every model. I think it's sponsored by A16Z's open source grant. I see our friends in the audience from Hugging Face. There's Nova if you want to come up and talk a little bit about the stuff that you're seeing. But quantization really helps like get models to run on local hardware and smaller hardware. Apparently, there's also now a state-of-the-art quantization called Quip, which compresses models even further. And I honestly have no much more details about that. I'll just add this link in show notes and you guys can hear. I just want to stress that all of that happened on Friday, just this one day. And we're apparently somebody speculated, I think Andrei Karpathy speculated that all these things are coming out before NeurIPS, because many of these people, I think definitely Team Detmers from Bits and Bytes library and the Q Laura and stuff, he's in NeurIPS and some other folks as well. All those folks are releasing some interesting things and then go to NeurIPS to trade ideas and talk about them as well. So potentially that was why everything dropped on Friday. Go ahead, Amish.
Yeah, just to add, the paper for 2-bit quantization actually was submitted in July, so it's been there for a while. But it's just that the actual implementation and everything is now coming to light.
Is that the Quip stuff?
Yeah, I'm talking about the Quip.
Yeah, so our paper came out in July. That's actually an interesting point that I'm going to talk about a little bit on the later stage when I kind of give updates on NeurIPS. How the delay from papers to actual kind of production stuff and what's going on that we've covered already. It's very interesting because people talk about, there's a paper presenting Vicuna, which happened this year, and we've moved away from Vicuna quite a bit since then, but it's very interesting. It's still like shout out to LMCs and folks for releasing and working on some stuff, and there's still ideas flying around kind of NeurIPS. So I think we've covered most of the Friday stuff. And then we also talked about Mixtral 0.2 on Monday. We want to talk about Phi2.0, which was released. And we've talked about Phi 1.5 from Microsoft. And we talked about some things about Phi specifically where let's maybe cover Phi for a little bit. And folks, please help me chime in here as you will. Just raise your hand. So Phi, PHI from Microsoft is Eldad Ronen, I think, is the guy behind some of the folks. they released a very tiny model, I think 1.5 billion parameters back in the summer or something. And they trained it on a data set called Tiny Stories, and they showed like a very impressive performance on reasoning and logic back then. Then there was a little bit of a controversy on Twitter talking about maybe they have what's it called? Maybe the data set was poisoned with. Umesh, you want to catch up on that? Maybe they trained on the metrics, and then this model. Go ahead, alignment. Maybe the metrics were like built into the model, so that's why it performed well. You remember that?
Yeah, it was never like there was like some pretty strong evidence that they had shown on benchmarks, but it was never really conclusively proven. It really may have just been that if you train on if you pre-train on GPT-4 outputs, you just score really high on human eval because that data set is like really built around how GPT-4 codes. The paper itself was, I think, really more about this large scale sort of synthetic data generation pipeline. The model's architecture, and so please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the model's architecture is actually like not incredibly unique or adapted for the task. Just being smart and small. It's just all about like very high quality data. That being said, the new model claims it's outboxing Mistral 7B as a 2.7B. So do feel free to approach that with skepticism.
So the new model being 5.2, we talked about this getting announced recently. I think it was announced during Microsoft Ignite, which happened just after Dev Day, right? But we haven't seen the model itself, which is like saw an announcement. And then I think it was the same time where Satya was standing on stage and saying we love open source and we're adding like Mistral to our Azure APIs, etc. And now we're seeing the weights as well. And I think the funny thing is we've talked about Gemini Ultra, Gemini Pro, and then Gemini Tiny, or whatever they call it, like their local inference model. I saw that Phi2 already like outperforms the Gemini Tiny one, and it just came out. However, it's not commercially licensed, right? So we can only play with this. We cannot use this for anything significantly better. But for local stuff and for the like local JS stuff, I think that model was already uploaded to Hugging Face, even though at first it was hiding behind a tab in Azure, and many people was like, I don't want to sign up to Azure just to download weights. It's all like it's a very horrible thing. So we had some folks from I think it was Niston and Farrell. They re-uploaded that weights to Hugging Face, which we all why not just release on Hugging Face, folks, and then put it behind your portal. But yeah, we saw our friends of the community like extract for the convenience of all of us those weights and put them on Hugging Face. I think then Microsoft actually like came through and put the official weights on Hugging Face as well. I think Niston and the Microsoft AI guy, they talked together about this effort or something. Go ahead, Akshay.
So yeah, I just wanted to talk about Phi2 because in the past week, if I've played with any model, the most it's Phi2. And it's impressive because first of all, Phi2 is just a raw model. It does not have any instruct fine-tune or anything. It still performs amazingly good at reasoning tasks and mathematics tasks given its size. And it also has this really great resistance to, let's say, racism or that kind of stuff. And Microsoft has actually mentioned why it is so, because it's their the data set that they have used is something called as the textbook style data set, where everything is really well created and everything is really well organized in a data set. So this smaller model, also Microsoft has explicitly mentioned in the release paper that this might happen, that some of the evaluation matrices might have leaked into the data set, which was also the controversy for 5.1. People told that it performs really good on matrices, but in real world performance, it's terrible. So Phi2 has actually kind of solved that. At least it looks like it has solved that. If I'm talking about smaller models, I think Phi2 is currently the top model in terms of smaller models, in terms of performance, real world performance. So yeah, that.
So I actually haven't seen anybody host it, but it shouldn't be that easy. Like it shouldn't be that difficult to run. It's tiny, right? So I really want to play around with this and kind of test it out. I saw a significant boost. And when we talked about Phi2, when we reported on this, we actually saw a significant boost in reasoning as well, and on the empty benchmark. And so, yeah, go ahead, Dinesh.
Yeah, so just one thing I wanted to highlight is that it's been reported very widely that it has been, kind of pitted against Gemini Nano that you referred to, basically, that it performs well against Gemini Nano. But just wanted to clarify that it's just that they have compared it against the Gemini's reported benchmark. Google has not given access to Gemini Nano to anyone yet.
Yeah, that's true. Google is we're still waiting for some stuff from Google. We got some stuff from Google, so we're gonna talk about them. But yeah, we don't have access to Nano. However,
yeah, and
based on networks, it looks good.
Sorry, Alex, go ahead.
No, you're fine. I think I'm having some connection issues, so like you hear delays. Go ahead.
No, so just wanted to highlight that about the hiding behind the wall kind of thing. So we actually had to get in touch with Azure team to get access to it. I didn't realize what was happening on Twitter because I was with my team, and we were in touch with Azure for some other project, and we wanted to get Phi2 access, and they actually showed us that this is how you can get access to it.
They showed you, but then now it's in Hugging Face, and I think I just pinned the tweet from AK. From Hugging Face, that it's now there. I wanna do the chun from breaking news. We had a person just DM me about something, and then I hope that person is still here. So Quentin, if you're still here, the AI Meta just literally like 20 minutes ago released Project Aria, Ego Exo 4D. That like Ego is, I assume, something for models. Guys, I'm reading this as I kind of speak, and so. Concerning we're releasing Ego Exo4D, largest ever public data set of its kind to support research on video learning and multimodal perception. So there's like a bunch of videos they released for basically robot understanding. And Ego, I think it's the egoistic like view. So like it's from the first person view of people. And that's not a very easy data set to kind of collect, because like people actually need like wear face cameras or something. I think we're going there, but for training models and for robotics, I think it's very, very big. And also Omar, who's welcome to come on stage, is also DMing me about another breaking news for OpenAI, that they released the first paper in quite a while from OpenAI as well. The super alignment team, first paper showing progress and new approach, Richter-Strong generalization. So we don't know what's there yet, but OpenAI just released a new. So let me pin this to the top of the space so you guys can see, and we'll remember to talk about this. But yeah, we don't have insight into this yet, but they just released like a paper, and like we said, breaking news is hard to cover because we have to entertain you guys in the space, but also have to like figure out what this is. But if somebody reads this real quick and wants to come up and give us a brief thing, feel free to. So we just had like 2 breaking news in a span of like 20 seconds or 20 minutes, I guess. One from Meta releasing a huge data set for robotics, and we're going to talk about Optimus in a second, and we're going to talk about how that field accelerates. And AI is not only going to stay in digital, we're going to see physical AI as well. And so Meta released something for that, like a huge data set to train, but also OpenAI released something on alignment and generalization, which I'm still not sure what this is, but yeah, we'll see. And they also like launched like 10 million in grants or something like that. I will also, so I think as now we're like talking about OpenAI and Meta, I think we're naturally moving away from open source. So unless there's like many things to cover in open source, Austin, I think you made an announcement, but if you want to like briefly say that we're waiting for you, feel free. And then actually you have another one more thing, and we're going to move to big companies and LLMs. Go ahead. Actually, alignment, if you want to, there's a new folks in the audience who haven't heard you. So go ahead. And then we're going to move to Akshay.
Oh, yeah. No, I appreciate you. We could go ahead and move on, and I'll just post after the end of the pod so I don't interrupt anyone's attention. But yeah, definitely check my Twitter if you like free, good, smart things.
I love that tease. So Alignment Labs is working on some cool stuff, and then follow Austin for more. Okay, actually, go ahead.
So yeah, I just wanted to give an update on a company that we are all probably sleeping on, It's a company from South Korea. No, not Samsung. It's called Upstage AI, and they have released an open source model recently called the Solar 10.7 billion model, which is currently also the top model on the OpenLLM leaderboard. It beats even Mixtral on the basic matrices. So I just wanted to mention that. They claim that it is really well trained on 6 languages and it can perform equally on all 6 languages. So that we'll have to check because it released recently. But that's something I wanted to mention.
This is a model from scratch, right? By the way, Upstage has been known for, they've been able to crack number 2 spot before on the 70B fine tunes and stuff. So it's pretty interesting. They're doing stuff from scratch. I wonder how they did it, or maybe they mixed layers from another model.
So no, I think as far as I've studied, I think they have it's a model completely from scratch. It's not a bogged down model from the previous one. So it's completely trained from scratch.
I have like 30 minutes between calls. So instead of having lunch, I am here.
This is the place to be. Also, don't schedule calls on Thursday. Listen, what are you doing? Okay. So actually, thank you, Upstage. Do you, if you don't mind finding a tweet and pinning for us, so we'll remember to kind of to see it. But you're saying like it beats Mixtral, and it's a 10 billion parameter one model. It's not like Mixtral X or anything. It's just like one model that was trained foundationally from them. That's incredible news. That would be so good. Go ahead, actually.
Yeah. So I have been my tweet. They don't actually have a Twitter account, so they have not announced it on Twitter. But if you go to Hugging Face OpenLLM leaderboard, you will see it beats even 70 million models. So it's like the absolute top model right now on OpenLLM leaderboard, which is kind of cool.
It's really cool. And yeah, I don't think that people will be sleeping on that for long. Go ahead, listen.
I posted it as well. Also, briefly on the whole Phi thing, because they were not going at first to release it on Hugging Face. For some reason, they were just constraining it to Azure. But on Azure, you had to like fill out a form and apply to access the studio.
We literally I covered your attempts at like fighting the Microsoft corporate machine and getting it to the open source. We did, and we want to thank you. We also covered Pharrell's attempt at like removing language from the Mistral stuff. So yeah, come on time next time. But we definitely any insight in the conversation with the guy from Microsoft that pinged you?
Yeah, they're surprised. They're really surprised at how well at how much the community likes Phi. And also, from Georgi Gurganov's GitHub, they are now working on having support, because it had sometimes it used a different kind of attention from standard attention. So yeah, anyway, it's going to be supported on Llama CPP as well. And the other cool thing about Phi is that it was fairly easy to train quickly, so it opens up new possibilities in that regard. And it's scoring extremely well compared to Mistral, which is pretty amazing for a small model. And yeah, it's now the number 2 model on Hugging Face as well. So they were very surprised at how much people like the model. But yeah, anyway, all good. Yeah, carry on.
They were very surprised, and like it's good to have you connect with them now. Also, definitely tell Eldad and whoever you talk to come to Thursday to talk about this. They'll be more surprised. Imagine how surprised they'll be if they release this in Apache 2, and the whole like open source will just explode because people will be able to use this for production. Imagine how surprised they'll be. So thank you, Mr. and Var from Skunkworks for fighting on both fronts on the open source to get it fully open source with Mistral. And like I think we're all in alignment that Mistral the go to open source right now, but also for like getting Microsoft to feel the not feel the AGI, which is a thing, but to feel the open source kind of love. So hopefully Llama CPP releases some updates. Thank you, Nistan, and then we're gonna be able to play around with Phi, all of us easier, and maybe in like LM Studio support and maybe some quantization. Umesh, go ahead, and we're gonna move to big companies.
Yeah, just last thing, very quick thing. Satya dropped the video about the year of AI. So it's an interesting thing because we were on Phi and Microsoft. I just wanted to add to that.
Or is that like a new thing that just happened?
No. It's just year of AI. I mean, basically, he's talking about like the future is going to be that we'll be empowering the entire world with probably Phi. Who knows?
Oh yeah, and really quickly, Baklava is now in LM Studio, so you don't have to do any funky installs or anything. You can use multimodal AI just in LM Studio. So just look up Skunkworks or Baklava in there, and you'll find it.
Yeah, dude, thank you so much. I
I'm so
wanted
excited.
to mention this on the vision port, but not only Baklava, right? But like I think also
yeah, there's also the Llama 7B and the 13B as well, and Obsidian.
Obsidian, yeah, from Luigi
it's
and
actually
Baklava from you guys. So
it's actually
LM
my
Studio.
GPU file. I had to update that random thing we did during a space. That's actually what LM Studio is using. So he sent me some JSON to update
Wait,
it.
So for folks who don't know what LM Studio is, let's just talk about LM Studio. You can use Olama, or you can use which kind of covers llama.cpp. Olama is like a wrapper thing on top of it. Or if you want some UI, you have like basically two options that I know of locally. You probably have more, but like two I know is GPT-4o from Nomic AI. They also do some Atlas stuff and embedding like visualization. And you have LM Studio. LM Studio is like this like up and coming. I heard about them from a Technium's tweet where he said like, hey, here's our model and this is like the easiest way to use them. LM Studio is like very slick. And since Baklava and since Obsidian, since like all these models, I think for you from Adept as well, since all these things came out multimodal, I've been like badgering LM Studio like in DMs and public, like, hey, we're going into a world of multimodal. Why can't I drag an image to LM Studio? So it looks like the last release, LM Studio finally like added support for multimodal, not only to their UI, but I think, listen, correct me if I'm wrong, they have an API as well. So like LM Studio, when you run some of these models, they expose like a local server as well. So you'd be able to like program your stuff and use whatever runs in ML Studio to kind of back that up. And so that now supports fully multimodal images and text. And Baklava from Skunksworks and Need to work on it, and then the Obsidian from News Research are all supported. And that's great news for being able to run multimodal locally. So I really want to make sure we don't skip on this, and we give LM Studio the proper shout out here, because like I've been waiting for this for a long time. Multimodal is coming. Like we've all used GPT-4 Vision at this point. And it's so great to like being able to use these models locally. Yeah, Umesh, go ahead.
Yeah, you gave a shout out to LM Studio. So just wanted to highlight to people who are listening that LM's, it's their website is lmstudio.ai, and you can download a simple package for Mac or for Windows or for Linux, and you can run on all three. Olama only runs on Mac and Linux, but you can use it on Windows if you're using WSL. So those who are technically minded.
Yes, I will add this to the tweet, and you see the video from LM Studio. And shout out to these guys. We love them, and they're like making it easy for everybody in the audience who cannot install llama.cpp, for example, or llama because CLI. This is like a very simple way to just like click a button, download the thing. It works on cross-platform, and then you can like search for Hugging Face stuff. I think that part still needs to a little bit of work out, and then you can just like run these models on your hardware, and I think it's super cool. Folks, I think it's time to move on to the big company APIs and LLMs. So I'll briefly do the transition. We talk about open source a lot. This week we had almost an hour and 10 minutes just like talk open source. But I think VB from Hugging Face was like making it funny, like making a joke that it's going to take like 12 hours ThursdAI this week. No, ThursdAI is only 2 hours because like there's a limit to how much people can get updates. But open source is a big one. So I'll just like talk less about NeurIPS at the end. But let's look at big companies. We have like some huge things. So I think the main thing is GeminiPro was released in access for over API, right? So like when Gemini was released, they released like 3 models: Ultra, Pro, and Nano. And then Pro was the one that we got access to. Gemini Ultra is the one that supposedly beat GPT-4 on some benchmarks. And then Microsoft did some prompt magic with like different COT 32. Microsoft just beat GPT-4 like 0.4% or some bullshit like that. So they're like doing dick measuring contests for like the biggest models. But meanwhile, people want to build and try things with this. And so Gemini Pro was actually released, I think, a few days ago via API. And one interesting thing, and Umesh, I know you play with this, I would love to hear from you as well. Gemini Pro, one interesting thing that I saw is they use character pricing and not per token pricing. And I was thinking about this, like it's kind of weird for some folks, but I was thinking about this. Tokens, the way they're tokenized, they're really unfair to other languages as well. So I know, like, for a fact that I play with a bunch of like translation stuff, and so I used to send just strings of things into GPT-4, and I used to like see that like it's double the count when I send them in Hebrew or in other languages because of the way how Unicode works. And I hope that that's not the case with Gemini Pro. It's really like biased towards English because of just the price. Like it literally costs you 2x to talk with the LLMs via the API in different languages. And so it's really cool to see that it's like now per character, the pricing per character. It's an interesting approach. So hopefully you see this everywhere else. And Gemini Pro, we've had a friend of the pod, Skalski Pete from RoboFlow, the vision guy. He talks about he's very like generally likes the vision in Gemini Pro, even Pro, and not Ultra, which we'll hopefully get access from Ultra soon. I will say this one last thing that I was able. So our booth at NeurIPS, and I'll talk about NeurIPS at the end, is just in front of the DeepMind booth, and DeepMind had a whole Meet the DeepMind team thing, and so Jeff Dean appeared, and he walks around as though there's like a spotlight shining on top of his head. So like when we started to see like a bunch of people around, like just like gathered around the one single person, Jeff Dean, the guy in DeepBrain, one of the like top guys there, he came and he talked about this. So I have a chance to like tell him to join ThursdAI. I don't think he remembered that, but if you're listening to this, if you're listening to ThursdAI, thank you for releasing us the Pro models, and we can't wait to try Ultra because I heard from him that it's super cool. So Gemini Pro released, Ultra we're still waiting for early next year, and Ultra is no longer like the top performing model in town. Yeah, let's have rounds for folks from Gemini Pro API. I think Roman, you wanted to come up maybe to talk about this, and then Umesh, I know you played with this at least a little bit. So Umesh, go first, and then Roman.
Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't play. We didn't have a chance to play in a true sense, because we are actually implementing it in a project, and we are building a multimodal pipeline for that. So we were very concerned about, because yesterday when we got the access, actually the documentation dropped on GCP documentation website slightly earlier than the announcement, and we got the alert because we are watching the documentation through a crawler, and we started looking at it, and we had a client. Actually, we were with the client, and client actually said, "This is what we're looking for." And we immediately started working on implementing the pipeline. And the challenge we had is that we tested with some videos, basic videos using just the playground, which is there on GCP console, and it started failing. And then we used the API and it started working. So it was kind of a mess yesterday. But this morning, like till now, it has stabilized a lot, and it allows you to, one of the best part is that it understands images in terms of the context also. So for example, if you put 16 images, which is the maximum context length as far as the images are concerned, and then you say, okay, what is there in the third image? It would know which image you are talking about. So from that point of view, it is really, really great. Now, when you compare it with GPT-4, for example, for image inference, even in that, if you are implementing it in pipeline, what we found within the limited tests that we could do in 24 hours is that the inference is much better than what we found with GPT-4. And probably the disadvantage with GPT-4 is that in the background, it is obviously using a different model, which is using DALL-E to get the inference. And that could be the limitation that is taken care of by Gemini Pro. So in terms of identifying objects, identifying the colors, identifying text in the images, we found that it's extremely powerful. Video, we are still testing it. I don't have specific thing. One of the biggest advantage with Gemini Pro API is the structured output. So you can get really well structured output, which we have real difficulty in OpenAI. So that is one of the other advantage. As far as the video length is concerned, you only have up to 2 minutes of video. It's still not clear. So we have asked for clarification from GCP here in London as to when you say 2 minutes, what do you mean? Like, is it 2 minutes at 100 frames per second, 24 frames per second? because that would clarify how they are encoding the videos for the inference. Yeah, so that's my tip.
Thank you, Mesh. I didn't even know that like they support video. I thought there was like only vision for images. They let you.
No. I just put it on Jumbotron, kind of a brief that I created yesterday about the context length that is there, and there is a video length of 2 minutes. So, but you can only put one video, so you can't put more than one video. And then you can, as far as the pipeline is concerned, you can build a text, image, and video pipeline together in one if you have an agentic framework.
Wow. So, okay. So just maybe to let me like react in real time to the news, and listen, you can go after this. When they released that video, like Gemini Ultra, was like reacting real time, and then it turned out to be fake. There was a Google developer blog that talked about, okay, that video was like edited. And we've talked about this a little bit as well last week. And that video was edited, but in fact, they sent images. I did not know that they support video like as a native thing right now. 1 minute of video is plenty to be able to like record on a webcam and have it react. Maybe like not as fast, but wow, I did not know that they support video. And I think it's to be celebrated that now we have another vision API. Maybe not as good as GPT-4V, but probably somewhere in between the open source stuff. And then you probably can talk about like the baklava comparison, but somewhere between the open source stuff and GPT-4V. Which probably, for now is free as well. So there's a tweet that says, for now for developers, the quota is free, but also supports video that probably you can like build super cool content free. So thank you, Mesh. I did not know this as well. Nissan, go ahead. And then Roman, would love your reaction as well.
Yeah, so they released a very interesting paper on how they do the video. And I'll post it here in a bit and then go. What's really interesting that because it's limited to 16 images, then that leads me to believe that either they have limited the context of GeminiPro to 16K for the image embeddings that they get from Clip or whatever equivalent that they're using, and then they use the other 16K for actually generating text. And for video, it is, again, you're trying to share context in between the frames. So they come up with a clever way on how to chop them up based on how much information changed on them. So that's a very interesting paper to believe, because it's also like what open source was trying to do. And yeah, if you look on the GitHub and stuff, if you're snooping on branches, we're also cooking audio in the same model as vision. But I want to say, yes, I tried the GeminiPro through the API. You can get, I think, up to 63 calls a minute for text. I don't know how much that actually is for images. The multiple context one was interesting, where you just dump in multiple images and then it describes them all at once. However, on an individual basis, it wasn't all that impressive. Like, it was okay. I wasn't blown away based on just we've gotten used to this now. Well, at least I have. So it is comparable, but it's good to have an alternative. So I'm really interested to know if we can farm that 63 per second more as a comparison and distilling data.
Yes, I saw Anton Bakkers from Glaive already talking about, look at me farming whatever the free quota that they have, distilling this to like good vision models as well. Go ahead, Roman, and then Mesh.
Thank you. Actually, if you have a thing to respond to this, then you can go ahead before I change the topic just slightly. Still on Gemini. If not, I can go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, just wanted to add, as far as listen, I don't know if I misunderstood or something. So on the image context, they don't have any size limit. So you can upload any image size. But the only thing is that what we are trying to test is whether in the backend, if Gemini is or the inference pipeline is compressing the image. So what we are doing is we are creating certain specific images where if you compress the image, then that detail will be lost. And then we are going to do the inferencing and see if that part of the image gets lost when it gets compressed. And then we'll be able to come back and say, yeah, this is, and as far as the stress test is concerned, that is one of the pipeline that is coming up tonight. So my engineers are going to have a hell of a time today.
Yeah, just keep that in mind. So, for example, with clip and stuff, all the images that you add in get squished down to either 312 by 312 for OpenAI clip OSS, which is they released in 2021, or 512 by 512 for GPT-4, we suspect, and then they tile it up. So, yeah, keep in mind the image could be 8K and stuff, but it's still not going to output what I'm speculating is no more than like 1024 embeddings per image. So that's kind of how it works. So the total token size was amount of images, not size of each one. But yeah, overall, this is good.
Yeah, great news. It feels like we got something from Google, then we got like disillusioned a little bit because of the non-release release again with like the ultra just like teasing us, and now we're like getting into the actual thing, and we're getting excited. I'm very excited.
And Alex, we have beat down the bar too much, so we have to give some credit to Google for bringing us into true multimodal age.
Absolutely. Multimodal, like it's going to be everywhere. It's great to see from Google. It's great to see from OpenAI. Open source is catching up. We're now having like local multimodal with LM Studio. I'm definitely with it. Actually, go ahead, and then we're going to talk about the Mistral stuff as well.
Hey, so I'm
small
Roman.
stuff.
Oh, sorry, Roman, you're in the queue. So go ahead, Roman, and then actually.
Yeah, so I'll give a quick intro since I haven't spoken. I'm Roman. I'm a software engineer. I'm not an AI machine learner data scientist. So the things about all of this that are most exciting to me is amazing off-the-shelf tools that let me build cool enterprise tools and things like that. So one thing to note about Gemini choosing to do character level tokens as opposed to, or charging by character as opposed to by token, is that it is a pretty big deviation from what OpenAI was doing. Like you mentioned before, OpenAI, if you do Hebrew or if you do a lot of other letters that depend on Unicode encoding, then you get an unfair price, 2 times, 3 times more. I did post in the Jumbotron that there's an emoji. I posted a penguin emoji, I think, or something, or the space character. And that one actually counts as 3. It counts as 3 characters. And then since you brought up the Hebrew example specifically, I posted the word hello in Hebrew. And that one, according to Gemini's UI there, it says that it counts as 1, even though it's actually what it looks like to be 3 characters. So there's something maybe a little bit inconsistent, but I think one of the big takeaways there is that the change here makes sense. Probably the best explanation I heard was that tokens might be done differently. You could tokenize the word woman as 1 word, or as 1 token, or as possibly more tokens. But characters won't change. The amount of characters, something will. Maybe across languages, there's a bit of difficulty. But that being said, it's probably something a bit more stable than token embedding would be.
Awesome. Thank you, Roman. Thank you for coming up. I think actually let's go get to you, and then we're going to talk about Mistral and their API inference called La Plateforme.
I wanted to, quickly talk about something related to Google. That is, we have missed a point where Google has been making phones for quite some time, which is focused on running AI models on board. So Google with their Tensor chips have been doing that. And because of that, they're actually performing poorly in the phone market. And I think, and they have even announced that Gemini Nano will be available on their phones. So I hope, unless Apple is going to announce something really big in like next few months, I think Google will take the lead on Edge AI at least. So that's something I wanted to mention here.
I will say that from the saying, where's Google, we're now moving to where's Apple. And Apple does not usually miss a huge innovation wave. And Apple has been releasing the MLX stuff. We've talked about the open source. Apple definitely has the neural chips and the power in their devices. They've been continuously increasing. I think this thing just left, but we've talked about how we can run, even on like 3-year-old iPhones, we can run some like open source stuff. So I do believe that Apple will come back with something. I know that like they're represented well. So they're hiring. So in NeurIPS, they have a huge booth. They're hiring multiple folks. It's coming. I don't think that Apple is just going to sit behind and say, oh, this AI race, nah, not for us. They also, when they released the M3 M3 Pro and Ultra, like all these models, they specifically mentioned AI engineers as the first time they mentioned the word AI. I think it was when they announced the new Pro chips and Ultra chips, and they mentioned AI kind of developers and engineers, like not engineers, like AI developers and machine learning engineers as a new category of people, which like the professional models are trained, like are built for them, the professional, not large language models, the Mac models. And so Apple's not sitting behind this. Apple does, so based on Chris Latner, the guy from Mojo, when he talked with Lex Friedman, Apple usually sits for 4 years behind the thing and then releases it at once, and like it's all like mind blowing for many people. So we're waiting for Apple for sure. All right, folks, I want to move on to Mistral again. So remember we talked about Mistral in the open source because they're open source, but now I have this weird like split because Mistral now also offers an API to their services, which is the new thing they announced together with Mixtral, and it's called La Plateforme, which is their API platform. And they just released, I got access. I haven't been obviously able to play with this. However, some cool things coming out from that API. First of all, it's, I think, their first attempt at inference. Inference at scale takes a lot of GPU. So now that they've also announced like a significant investment, right? Like 400 million something. They now have the money to run those GPUs. It's, I think, free for now. And the pricing there, I don't know if it's free for now, but like the pricing there is not super cheap. And we saw immediately Together Compute, because it's open source, they are able to take the same models supposedly and just put them behind an API and run them. So Together Compute undercut Mistral's API for Mixtral by like 70% the same day or the day after. Even Imad Mustak from Stability was like, hey, at least give them a day. It was really funny to see. However, and there is a big however, Mistral did not give us all the models. They did not give us like everything. So in the API, they have a Mistral Tiny, which they call our most cost-effective endpoint, serve the Mistral 7B Instruct V2. So if you guys remember at the beginning of the hour or 2 hours ago, whatever, how much, an hour and a half we're sitting here, Mistral released like an Instruct version V02, and that's what they call Mistral Tiny in their API. And it only works in English. It pays 7.6 on empty bench score, so like a very capable model via their API, which you can download. They also have Mistral Small, which is the Mixtral stuff, right? So the Mixtral that we got on Friday, they call it Mistral Small in their API. And there's a new thing called Mistral Medium that receives 8.6 on empty bench. And that's an unreleased model. So we didn't get this as open source. We didn't get Mistral. Whatever they have over there that they give you an API as Mistral Medium, we didn't get. And according to some folks, that comes close to GPT-4. Or very frighteningly close to GPT-4. So now that's the reason why I'm putting Mistral in the big companies and API section and not only in open source section, because they now support both. They give us some models, they show their capabilities, they get developer love, but they also start to show us significant, like, we know they're working on more stuff. We know that there's a reason for that, like $400 or so million investment. Like it's been a crazy week for Mistral as well. And so they're now supporting all these things via API. And I gotta wonder what's behind that 8.6 empty bench medium model. And they call it the prototype model. And then among the top service models available based on standard benchmarks. Now, we know that standard benchmarks are not enough. We know this for a fact, like we've been talking about benchmarks as a thing. I see Pharrell in the audience. Shout out Pharrell for the benches and evaluations. Like we have to feel these models. Many people like prefer GPT-4 to GPT-3 and they don't know why, and that's not because of a benchmark. But definitely we know that Mistral knows what they're doing, and the fact that they have bigger models that like compete with GPT-4, and we have Ultra coming very soon, shows us that like the monopoly of OpenAI in this area is pretty much ended, and OpenAI needs to tell us and show us again why they're like the best people on the block to like give us better reasoning models. So I think that's mostly in the big companies and the LLMs APIs, like we've talked about GeminiPro, we've talked about Mistral, and I think the only two things that I still left to cover is stability and Imagen. Okay, so in the kind of the big company, but also in the AI Art Diffusion area, Imagen 2 was released from Google. Imagen has been long, like hidden behind the Google walls. And Imagen is like a diffusion model, kind of like Stability or DALI. And they've been giving access to Imagen to Google employees for a long time. I know for a fact, like before even DALI 2 released, Imagen was already running. And so they just released it. I don't know, honestly. I just want to update you. I haven't played with it yet. There's so many image models now that it's just ubiquitous, and we're just going to continue to see improvements. But Google have a lot of data and a lot of images that they have to train on. So definitely some serious, like Google decided to come back strong, right? So we keep talking about Google in these ThursdAIs, and I assume that we're going to continue to. And also Stability released a 3D model as well. And I had a chance to briefly talk with Imad about this, and Imad is like, he's not even stressing about this one release. He reposted this. I've chatted about this with Imad yesterday at the Stability AI party in NeurIPS, and he was like, "Yeah, of course, we're releasing models for everything. We're gonna have models for audio, for vision, for 3D, for everything." And basically, there was like grandiose plans in Stability AI to release a bunch of stuff. He also talked about their Zephyr and stable LM fine-tuned that he remembers some score that outperforms the smaller models as well. So stable LM is the large language model from, or small language model from Stability Diffusion. And so Stability is going to release a bunch of stuff, and the 3D model that's out there, I think, was caught in between like a bunch of other major news as well. What else do you have to talk about? I think I covered most of this. The last thing that I wanted to talk to you about before like NeurIPS, and Umesh, go ahead. I'll take a little breather, and then I'm going to cover Optimus and then NeurIPS.
Yeah, just wanted to highlight the that OpenAI dropped that new paper on the super alignment problem, and they are talking about having small models, basically aligning larger models and controlling the larger models. So that's the architecture that they are talking about. So it came out 40 minutes ago, and I just read through the details, and it seems to be very, very interesting concept, and probably also hinting towards why Google is talking about Gemini Nano, and also Microsoft is so excited about Phi, because there is a way you can actually have the not only the edge compute or edge delivery or edge inference using nano model, but you can use that nano model as an orchestration device for controlling output of the larger models. So it's very interesting right now. I'm going to just go through the details after our space, but it seems to be very, very interesting on the prima facie.
The orchestration model to a larger model is like a gatekeeper thing. I heard about.
Yeah. So yes. So what they are posting. So I'll put it on Jumbotron in 30 seconds. But basically, what they are writing, I quote: "Large pre-trained models have excellent raw capabilities, but we can elicit these fully with only weak supervision. And GPT-4 supervised by GPT-2 recovers performance close to GPT-3.5 supervised by humans." So basically what they are saying is that you can use GPT-2 level model as a what do you call it? Instead of RLHF, you can have a smaller model actually working as HF and controlling the or kind of supervising the GPT-4 level model.
So I had a friend of mine who was presented at the Denver meetup as well, and he builds like agents for, you know, big companies already in production for pharma and everything. I want to shout out to him once he comes to ThursdAI. And he was talking about in his agent setup that's something also that he uses. And once he switched to that, he has like a small model, like basically herding the requests and deciding whether or not like the bigger model should even like wake up and start dealing with this. And that model, since they moved to this model, like a smaller model deciding for a bigger model, I think they saw significant improvements in their agent thinking as well. So definitely there's more area to explore there.
Yeah, Alex, if you remember in one of our Thursday Pro podcasts, when we were talking about my system that we put the semantic kernel to in our pipeline, that's exactly what we are doing actually with Mistral models. Is we are using Mistral model to basically decide whether we are going to go to which inference point we are going to go to, and how we are going to whether to tap into function calls and everything. So we currently have that entire thing can be built using the semantic kernel actually.
So you call the semantic kernel, good to know. And so good to know that I have two friends that do the same thing. And then also incredible to think about the implications of the edge model running, doing this for you. And then only if you need, you tap into the bigger models behind APIs, right? So devices can get even smarter once all these models come to the edge. And you can
just to add one more thing, when you're building an enterprise application, one of the biggest problem you have, or not problem, but challenge you have to stick to is the costing part of it, because you need a complete cost visibility, and then you need a smarter model to make sure that your cost of inference remains under control and you're managing it. And that's where these orchestration models, what we call in our internal communication, these orchestration models not only handle the inference part, but they also keep track of the costing part and selects the model based on whether the inference that we need to carry out, what kind of value we need to give to that inference. So there is a value attached to it, and that's how we track the cost of every inference that goes through the pipeline.
Awesome. Okay, folks, I thank you, Mesh, and thank you everybody who stayed all this way until the end to hear about everything that happened in the AI for the past week. When I say everything, I usually I used to mean everything. I literally all the news that came out besides the tools and everything. Recently, this is not everything because it's impossible. This is everything that's important, or at least everything that the group of folks here on stage and the group of folks behind the scenes, just so you know, there's a bunch of us sitting in the chat room, sharing news, are talking about oh, we should talk about this, we should talk about that. So everything that this group deems important, and also I welcome the community to also join in this. So if you see something that's super cool and important, tag me and tag ThursdAI.news, ThursdAI pod, sorry, who's on stage here, the corporate account for ThursdAI. And so thank you everybody for participating in creating this news summary, and thank you everybody who came to listen to us and get up to date with us, because it's really hard to keep up with everything, and it's even harder to keep up with everything while I'm on a work trip. And so I wanted to talk to you about the work trip that I have, which is I'm here at NeurIPS. NeurIPS, this is where I'm recording from. So everybody who stepped in to the stage after we started recording, I'm sitting in a janky hotel room. So apologies for the sound quality and the audio quality and the network, whatever, all these things. We're in we're in travel conditions here on ThursdAI, but I thought it was super, super cool to bring you some live coverage from NeurIPS. And so I actually did this on my account. I did a bunch of live streaming on the Weights and Biases account. If you see a large black square with dots on it, with the Hive dots on it, hit that account. This is the main Weights and Biases account. I basically took over some of that for this week, and I did a bunch of live streaming. Because this is my first time in NeurIPS, and I'm not a machine learning engineer, and I'm now existing in the company that has them, and Weights and Biases is definitely used by many of them. So we have a booth here, and I was told on my first day at work, 3 weeks ago, hey, Alex, you should go to NeurIPS. They call it NeurIPS. NeurIPS. And I was like, okay, I don't know about the product yet, but I'll go, fine. And so it's been 2 weeks since then, and I came, and it's mind-blowing. It's really hard for me to describe what the hell happens here at NeurIPS. So here's a bit of knowledge that I was able to grab about NeurIPS as I was here. We have around 15,000 people from all over the world come to this huge conference area, and huge it's the convention center in New Orleans, and it's filled with machine learning engineers and PhD candidates and all of the top companies who come here to hire them because they want to build AI, and all of them are buzzing around several things. So there's the talks, and the basic talks are this is not a conference that I know of in a traditional sense with it's, I don't know, 3,000 people, let's say, in the audience. There's one talk on one track and people come and listen to this. This is massive. There's multiple rooms of thousands of people sitting and watching a fairly, how should I say, some of the researchers that present, they're not very presentable on stage. So they just go there and do their job, but it's very hard to understand what they're actually talking about from their paper. So like there's like a room of 3,000 people and there's like applause at the end, but like I don't know how many people actually understood anything. However, that's not the most important part. It's like an academic conference. It used to be very small and now it's popping because everybody's in AI. So like there's 15,000 people here. The expo hall where we have a booth with weights and biases, and like Apple has a booth, Meta has a booth, Microsoft has a booth, Google DeepBrain has several, because like DeepMind and Google Brain like connected, whatever. So they have several booths in there. Citadel, for some reason, like the company invests. Everybody's trying to hire some of these PhD candidates. So everybody's like trying to come and show and give swag and talk about like their thing and how their thing is cool. They're hiring interns. But I think the biggest, coolest thing about this conference is just like the amount of people you get to meet, and just hopefully this doesn't count as braggy because like I really sought out these people and tried to get pictures of them. I have a picture with Jan LeCun that I posted. It was like probably the highlight of my personal experience here. I took a picture with Jan. I talked to him about this state space models. He wasn't impressed. It was really funny. I saw and talked with Jeff Dean about Gemini Ultra and when it's coming to us, and invited him to ThursdAI. I don't know if he's gonna come. Who else? I saw Max Tegmark, and I know there's a panel that's going to be with like Jan LeCun and Max Tegmark and Nick Bostrom and all these like doomers. They're going to talk about alignment like tomorrow, I think. I saw our friend of the pod, Nathaniel Ruiz. If you remember Nathaniel and Ariel, we talked about their model called Platypus for a while. So like basically everybody who has like a thing that people build on is here. I've chatted with Imad Mustak from StripedHyena yesterday for almost 20 minutes. Now, here's the kicker. I don't know how much of this is because I work now with weights and biases. All these people are actually like clients, so I get to like come to them and say, "Hey, I'm Alex. I have a podcast that also like I work with weights and biases." So probably some amount of that is there. But I saw Andrew Ying, for example, Andrew Ying from deeplearning.ai. If you guys know, they have like the free courses, and Jeremy Howard from Fast AI as well. Like all these people like running around the conference, and they're eager to meet people and PhD candidates and people who come and tell them, "Hey, we learned from you guys." And just like an incredible intensity of talent, and kind of basically the Twitter sphere in AI is condensed into this like one area. Everybody's approachable. Everybody like wants to talk about some ideas. It's really cool. And I think the highlight for me, besides the parties, there's also, wow, Jesus Christ. Let me tell you about the parties for a second. Yesterday, people literally did like party hopping because the conference goes for a week. Everybody tries to pick a day because like it dies down. So it started on, I think Monday was the main conference hall, and then Tuesday and Wednesday were sessions. And today we're ThursdAI, of course. Wednesday is the middle of the week. That's the highest like dense place. There were like 7 parties going on of all different people. Everybody's trying to like show a good time to all the researchers and the interns to hire them, but also to like to show off. So Mixtral party was like a frat party yesterday, which I didn't get into. OpenAI had a party. I also didn't get into that. But everybody's like trying to like trade notes on like, okay, here's the cool things we learned at the conference, but also, hey, where are you going tonight? What are you doing tonight? Everybody wants to meet the people behind the thing. So OpenAI and Google and Stability and Mistral and Runway, all these people had like a competing party, 5 minutes walking from each other, right, in the same area. And that's like a huge part of this whole conference, because it's one thing to come and like listen to a talk, but there's a completely different thing to actually like have a drink with a researcher and geek out on like the state space models or something like this. So that's definitely a huge part of this. And this year it's in New Orleans, and this is my first time in New Orleans, and I really like how everything is happening, because like it's loud and it's like buzzing. And it's really funny to see all these like researchers and AI folks and machine learning engineers just like, geek out in the morning and then party out in the evening. That's really, really fun. So it's a big part of that. But I think the highlight for me is the poster sessions. So I encourage you to go again to the Weights and Biases. I don't think I posted that one on my account. If I did, I think Weights and Biases has this video where I reposted. Basically, we followed Yannick Kilcher. I don't know if you folks follow Yannick. Definitely you should follow Yannick. He's like his great content creator. So we met with him after he gave a talk about Open Chat. Open Assistant, not Open Chat. Open Assistant. Open Assistant from Yannick and Lion and all these people, they came out just after GPT-4, and they started collecting like open source questions and answers, and there is like a huge data set as well. And so he talked about this on stage with some co-authors of the paper in front of like 3,000 people. It was ridiculous to see like how big that crowd was. Yannick is a great entertainer, so it was like really fun to hear him. So we caught up with him. He's like he's supporting Weight and Biases as well. So we caught up with him just after the talk, and he had a poster. Just imagine like a huge poster. He carried in like specific poster backpack thingy that people apparently have here. And he was like telling us, hey, I don't have time to talk to you guys. I have to run to the poster session. And this being my first time in NeurIPS, I was like, hey, Yannick, can I like follow you and like take a video of this? He's like, sure. So I encourage you to watch the video. But as Yannick like telling us about how it is to be a presenting kind of a talk and author and NeurIPS, we're following with a video him through the halls of like this convention center in New Orleans as we walk through like just like thousands of people all trying to get to the poster sessions. And we kind of flow, all this mass flows of researchers and like people talking about the same thing flows into like huge space. So we just came out from the huge space and we're moving into a bigger, even bigger space filled with boards, and all these boards are like posters, and all these posters are like printed posters of papers. All these papers were submitted to NeurIPS, and apparently, you're required to present your paper on the poster, on the board, at least for one session of like 3 hours if you submit your paper. So everybody who submitted their paper, they stand in front of the board, and you can just like browse in that hall, and you can ask questions about specific methods, and you can like point obviously like people point out issues with things. So we saw folks from Lion and Luther, Stella Biederman, if you guys know her, we saw her poster about memorization. That was super cool. And so we followed Yannick through this as he presented the paper, as he was setting up. This is a cool video. And just like, I want you to watch, not because I produced it. I want you to watch it because like that's a little bit of a feel of how it happens in NeurIPS. And it's really cool. It's really something that I haven't experienced before and was definitely my highlight. Besides meeting the cool people, besides having them fight out on stage in different like panels, besides the parties at night, I think this was definitely the coolest thing. I will say, because I'm part of Weight and Biases, I was not expecting the amount of love that we received. So Umesh, you and I talked about Weight and Biases last time. Organically, you said like how much you guys love this, but the amount of people who come up to our booth and just say, "Hey, we love you guys. We love you guys. We use you every day." And I'm standing there like, I'm new here. I'm a podcast host. I'm new. I'm like trying to figure out so I don't deserve this love. But it's been incredible to just like see how many people in the, because it's free for researchers and free for research and free for universities. That's the trick, right? With the bias is free for universities. And then when those people go to Apple, they come to their boss and say, hey, I don't want to use this like open source tensor board thing. Like I want to use the proper tools that OpenAI uses to train GPT-4. Why can't we just get a seat? So this is our growth engine. But just the amount of people that come up and say, hey, you guys saved my life, or like whatever, we use this paper with Weights and Biases. It's just like incredible to see. So I wanted to share all that. And I'm still here. I'm still sitting. I'm talking to you guys, but I'm running after like this. I'm probably going to start editing real quick. So hopefully the editing will take place not that slow, and I'll be able to run and actually enjoy the rest of the conference. I just wanted to bring you kind of my experience as a first-time NeurIPS kind of attendee, and as a presenting, we're probably a sponsor here as well, but also as part of like this new wave of AI, because apparently NeurIPS is 37 years old. This is the 37th annual convention of NeurIPS. I think it started as IPS, Information Processing Systems, and then it became like Neural Information Processing Systems. And it had a AI winter that people say that barely anybody showed up to NeurIPS. And I think this is their largest ever convention with like, I think around 15,000 people show up. So hopefully this was entertaining for you to hear about like how our NeurIPS is happening behind the scenes. I will say that friend of the pod Technium and some folks from News landed here as well. We've met yesterday. We're going to probably meet in like a open source party tonight. There's an open source. If anybody's here listening, I don't think there will, but because the conference is going on, but if anybody's here listening this and you're in New Orleans, try to get to the Hugging Face party tonight. There's a Hugging Face and open source party. And supposedly it's going to be off the hook. Cool. So definitely try to get into that. and I can send you a link if you're here. Probably I don't know if you're gonna get through the wait list, but the thing I learned is like there's so many parties going on. At some point, they just open the doors for everybody who wants to come in. I think with that, Umesh, you have one other thing, and then we can probably close out for today. And we did a good job. We're almost like 8 minutes out from 2 hours, so we covered everything. So go ahead.
Yeah, unfortunately, while I sent you the message about one thing, I got the second thing as well. So one thing.
Unfortunately, you have two things. It's not unfortunate. That's great. Go ahead.
Okay, so basically, Intel dropped a new processor, the 5th generation processor, which will provide 42% gain over local inference on your own machine or on your own laptop, basically. So that's the new. I'm still going through the details, but that's a 5th generation Xeon processor specifically designed for AI. So AI, your local AI in your own computer is just around the corner. It's coming, guys. It's coming. A second thing is that OpenAI, we spoke a little bit about the super alignment or weak to strong generalization. So there are two things, important things that OpenAI has declared. One is they have released open source code for carrying out weak to strong alignment. So that is something really significant. So I was just quickly going through the code repo. It seems to be interesting. I didn't have a chance to really look into it, but from the concept of it, it looks superb. Like it seems to be very, very interesting. So it is based on their paper on weak to strong generalization. So if you're interested in that, and another shout out to people who are interested in research, they have actually released a 10 million grant for graduate students, academics, and researchers who would like to work on superhuman AI alignment in a broader sense. So these are massive things. And Alex, if you permit me, I want to highlight one thing before we forget. People who are listening, this is the best show on space, or probably this is the best show on internet where you get all the news. So give Alex a follow, give ThursdAI a follow, and give follow to all the speakers who are on the stage. You will not get this kind of a news from any other show. I guarantee you. I have been to many shows, and that's why I was after Alex to get on this show. This is the best show here on this space, period.
Wow, Mesh, thank you so much. And thank you for jumping in on co-hosting. And I would just say, acknowledge Luigi, who joined in late, but like a dear co-host of ours as well. I only have like 3 places with Luigi and news research. We talked about Capybara and Obsidian, and we've talked about news a bunch and alignment labs as well. Welcome. As I close the space, thank you, Mesh. Thank you so much. I want to thank all of you for coming up and hearing this like from week to week. Hopefully this is helpful to get up to speed. As you see, we do this even from like travel conditions, and we do this like whatever, even though like I could have like gone for later last night. There's like, nope, I have like, there's not in tomorrow. We have to talk about AI. And so I'm bringing news from NeurIPS next week, probably going to cover some crazy shit that happened since then. And I'm sure it's going to continue to keep happening. This will go into editing soon, and then I'll send out probably just a small recap, not a full-on newsletter, because we also send a newsletter every week. So thank you, everybody on stage who joined. Thank you, Roman and Akshay, and definitely Umesh. Thank you, Luigi, Nistan joined before, and some other folks as well. We love open source. We love talking about this as much as possible. And the more it happens, the more we're going to talk to you about this. So thank you all for joining. And then we're going to see you here next week. And meanwhile, I do recommend checking out still the Weights and Biases account. I'm taking over for this week. I'm live streaming a bunch of stuff. I will probably live stream. Oh, okay. Tomorrow, there's a workshop from Mila Quebec, the machine learning, whatever interface place in Quebec. And apparently on stage is going to be like a fight, like maybe a physical fight between Max Tegmark and Nick Bostrom and Jan LeCun and some other folks. I'm definitely going to live stream this. I'm going to bring some popcorn. I don't know if that's going to happen still, but like I'll definitely try to live stream that as much as possible. So stay tuned for that and for some of the parties tonight.
Yeah, make sure you record the fight in horizontal, please, by the way.
I cannot promise. I don't know. Like some convenience for my wrist is also acceptable, but yeah, I got it. I'll try to see if there's a fight. If Jan LeCun throws down, I'm going to be recording this with like 4K HD, whatever needed. Okay, folks, with that, thank you. I wish I had the music to like play us out, which I usually do, but I will put this on the thing, and I'm going to go and edit and send this to you, and then run away to NeurIPS to check out some more sessions. Thank you for joining ThursdAI. I love that you're here. I love that this is the thing that I get to do now, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everyone.